The renewable energy arm of the Ayala Group, Acen Corporation, is hoping to expand its attributable renewables capacity to 20 gigawatts by 2030, nearly 3 times more than last year's. Acen designs, develops, and manages wind and solar energy generation plants serving customers in the Philippines, Australia, Indonesia, and India. And taking a look at its stock price, Acen has dropped to a new 4-year low following its announcement yesterday, Wednesday, to raise up to 30 billion pesos through a stock rights offering priced at a minimum of 2 pesos 30 per share. For Ron Acoba of Trading Edge, he says signs are emerging the stock may have bottomed out. The stock price is currently hovering near its previous resistance level at 250, which could now act as support. And combined with the oversold relative strength index reading at the bottom of this chart, Acoba says this setup hints that a potential rebound might be on the horizon. Well, with us now for more is Jonathan Back, Group Chief Finance Officer and Chief Strategy Officer of Acen. Good to see you, Jonathan. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good to see you, Cathy.
All right, so you've announced a stock rights offering, 30 billion pesos that you're hoping to raise via equities. What is the timeline for that?
Timeline should be done, we expect, by the end of August of this year. Could slip a little bit into September, but the idea is to now get this done as quickly as we can from a regulatory and legal point of view.
What about from an expansion point of view?
You mean expansion of our capacity?
Correct.
Well, as you noted, we are looking to grow our attributable capacity over our various markets but not just over the next 5 years. Really, our growth will likely be far out into the future, as you would expect from any company in what is a rapidly growing field globally, which is to say renewable energy. And the markets in which we focus here in the Philippines, Australia, Vietnam, India, these are all seeing significant growth in renewable energy. And indeed, just in the emerging economies, just a lot of growth in electricity demand anyway. In last year, for example, in Vietnam, they saw growth of over 10% in terms of electricity consumption. Here in the Philippines and in India, we're kind of at the 5-6% annual growth. So there's a lot of inherent demand for electricity, and clearly the world is in the process of the energy transition to much more renewable, or at least zero carbon sources of energy. We hope to be supplying a lot of that. Now, whether we, I think our original target in 2030 was, you might say, a North Star, an aspiration. We're not tied to any one particular number at any one particular date, because projects sometimes will move, they all move at their own pace, frankly speaking. So we will be expanding significantly, but it won't be an exact number of megawatts at a particular date, I would suggest.
Given the inherent demand and the expansion needed, are there plans for another capital raising via equity sale after this 30 billion peso SRO?
No, there are not. We plan for this common equity raising to be the last that we do for the foreseeable future. And by that, I mean over the next 5 years. We do obviously need equity capital in order to fund the growth trajectory that we've got. But going forward, we're going to see a lot of our internally generated cash flow being put into our new projects. Because as our current attributable capacity of just under 7 gigawatts gets into full operation, which you should see by the end of 2027, you're going to see our ability to generate cash flow to reinvest into projects grow really quite significantly.
Well, a lot of questions remain on the energy transition. How robust are discussions these days at the C-suite level, trying to make sense of Trump's anti-decarbonization rhetoric, which includes initiatives against clean energy, and in particular, solar and wind?
Well, I mean, what I would say is that the countries in which we primarily operate, Philippines, Australia, the Mekong Delta area, India, all have their own goals and targets when it comes to energy. And as I said earlier, in the emerging economies, the developing economies, that rate of energy growth or demand growth is sufficiently high that you kind of need all of the above when it comes to new sources of generation. But at the moment, for all of these countries, renewable energy is a particularly attractive way to move forward. I would just say that that needs to be linked to more energy storage. But what I would say is that if you look at government goals in each of these main countries in which we operate, they're all looking at significant expansion of renewables. I don't think energy policy in the rest of the world has to be dictated by the United States, to be frank with you. It's all of these countries need a lot of new energy, and we and others are poised to provide it in the cleanest possible way. And by the way, in a also cost-effective way for consumers.
But is it really cost-effective? Because fossil fuel prices are showing us another direction, from crude oil to coal, natural gas. They've all fallen to record lows year to date. So cheaper prices of fossil fuel, a disincentive for renewable energy use, making it difficult these days to greenlight RE projects. So how do you justify that renewables are still the way to go when it comes to energy transition?
Sure. Well, I mean, the energy transition inherently means moving away from fossil fuels. If we have even half a belief, so to speak, in climate change, then this is something we're still going to need to do, no matter what the prices of fossil fuels are. Now, look, we're not blind to movements in fossil fuel prices. Of course, they impact on our markets. But I'd hesitate to characterize it as record lows. I mean, if you look at where, for example, the gas prices are in this part of the world, they're still at a pretty elevated level compared to where they were a few years ago. And gas, we accept, obviously, that gas is going to be part of that whole energy transition story. But we're not, we don't think that those fossil fuel prices are going to be are really going to impact on the overall long-term level of renewable energy demand across the various regions. And in some countries, gas will just become more expensive over the longer run, we believe.
We have about a minute, Jonathan. What is Acen's appetite like for bidding capacity in the green energy auction program here in the Philippines? Are there any particular technologies in which you're eyeing a larger share?
Well, we have strong pipeline in all of the categories. We're particularly interested, I'd say, in the floating solar and the onshore wind components of the green energy auction program. Those are very interesting for us. We hope that in the future rounds of GEAP, there'll be more scope for these integrated energy and storage solutions, which we believe are very important as part of the transition.
Great. Well, thank you so much for joining us and for illuminating us on the way for renewables. Jonathan Back of Acen.